I promise that I won't be doing this all the time, but I wanted to begin with a cautionary tale that came from my own studies. When I was working for my doctorate, my supervisor was an expert in the method that I was using, but freely admitted that she did not know very much about religious education. As I was working with her, I would often make statements about particular documents. And she would say to me, "Where does it say that?" And what I came to realise was that my knowledge of the documents was not as good as I thought it was, because in many cases my knowledge was actually second-hand. It was somebody who had commented on a document, or it was something that somebody had said that they'd heard someone else to say. Now I say that it's a cautionary tale, because for those of you who have been involved in religious education for a period of time, it will be very easy at the start to think that you know what these documents actually say. In some ways, people who haven't had a lot of experience at religious education are at more of an advantage. So why I wanted to sort of begin with this, as you start this module, which I've called the big picture, I'd like you to pretend you know nothing about RE. Read these documents as though you've never read them before, especially the Vatican documents, because it's not uncommon, especially for those working in Catholic schools, that what we actually know is the interpretation of the Vatican document that a particular diocese has put upon it, which is not to say that that's incorrect, but you might well find when you look at the document that there are other things that the document says, other aspects of religious education that you might not have thought of. So I've called this module the big picture, and almost as soon as I did, I thought to myself, why did I do that? Because from my own experience in religious education, there is not one big picture, there are many different pictures. So when we talk about issues in religious education, especially school religious education, it's not one picture that we're looking at, it's almost an entire art gallery. So, for example, the way in which issues present themselves will be slightly different depending on which state of Australia and which diocese you are in. They will be different depending on whether or not you work in a primary, a secondary or a P-12 context like I do. And they will also be different if you work in a religious institute school as opposed to a school run by a Catholic Education Office, a system school. So as we begin this unit, I'd like you to think about your own local context, but by engaging with the documents that I've included to look at the bigger picture. What are some of the other issues that are affecting religious education as we look at it today? The module begins by considering two important documents. The first document is the Declaration on Christian Education, which was promulgated by the Second Vatican Council 50 years ago in 1965. Its Latin name, if you'll forgive the pronunciation, is Gravissimum Educationis. My Latin is terrible, so you won't find me using that very much in this course. It was very much a foundational document that then set the scene for what we call the post-conciliar documents in the years which have followed the Council. And one of the things you'll notice about the official Vatican documents as we go through the unit is that they build on one another. You won't find one document contradicting a previous one. You'll find it building upon the foundations that the previous document created. The second document is a pastoral letter of the Catholic bishops of New South Wales and the Australian Capital Territory, and it was titled Catholic Schools at the Crossroads. And it came at an interesting time, and one of the things I've asked you to consider when you look at the document is what was the context of the document. And to understand that, we actually need to go back to 1998, when the Australian Catholic bishops had their regular 5-yearly meeting with Pope John Paul II, and out of that meeting came what was known as a Statement of Conclusions about the state of the Catholic Church in Australia. So in some ways, Catholic Schools at a Crossroads is a look at how things have gone almost 10 years after that document was issued. And then what I've included are two other documents which respond in some ways to how have things gone over the last 50 years. So the first of those is an article which appeared in the Catholic Weekly and was written by Anthony Cleary. Anthony is Director of Religious Education and Evangelisation in the Sydney Catholic Education Office, and he's been a very influential figure in the development of curriculum, especially in New South Wales. The second document is a challenge, and it reminds us that what we're looking at here is not necessarily agreed to by all people. It looks at some statistical data which suggests that things are not going very well. So as you engage with the material in this unit, I'd like you to do it with an open mind. And I'd also like you to just acknowledge that many of the issues in this unit are contested issues. As you go through the readings, you'll find that different authors have different perspectives on these, also, although sometimes those perspectives can be difficult to spot. I suppose a final word about issues. So the unit is Issues in the Teaching and Coordination of School Religious Education. So it's a very specific unit. But what I'd like you to remember about issues is that every view is a view from a point, as Kierkegaard would have said. And what I mean by that, as you look at these issues, you're looking at them through the lens of a teacher or a coordinator or an APRE who's fairly engaged in the process of religious education. Occasionally, what I'd like you to do is step away from that frame of reference and think, how would some of the other stakeholders who have a keen interest in religious education regard some of the issues that you've looked at? So, for example, a parish priest will have a very different perspective, as will someone who works in a Catholic education office, as will the parent of a student who's trying to understand and grapple with what Gabriel Moran calls a second language. So enjoy the material in this unit. If there's anything that you would like clarified, we'll be able to do that at our tutorial, or alternatively you can email me. So enjoy the material and good luck.